The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the author and his guests. The author makes no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or validity of anything discussed and will not be responsible for any errors or omissions contained therein. This podcast does not constitute as professional advice. Brought to you by Sunshine Legal, Albuquerque's premier LGBTQ legal resource. Sunshine Legal, serving ABQs LGBTQ.
You're listening to Dev Talks, the weekly hot topic podcast where nothing is off limits. Pop culture? Let's talk about it. Polarizing politics? Let's talk about it. Films, music, Twitter feuds? Oh, you know we're talking about it. Here to get the conversation started is your host of Dev Talks, Devin Douglas.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the show. Whether you're listening on YouTube, Spreaker's podcast radio app, or Spotify, whatever platform you've decided to listen to us on, thank you so much. I'm your host, Devin Douglas, and you're listening to the debut episode of Dev Talks. Yes, my name is in the title. And I know what some of you are thinking, don't you already have a show? What happened to the Spotlight podcast? Well, to make a long story a little bit shorter, there was another show with the same name, and although they never contacted us directly, I didn't want there to be a dispute over the name, and I didn't want anyone thinking or saying we were trying to rip anyone off or anything like that, because that's 150% not the case. So, originally, the decision was made to rebrand the show. Just slap a new name and a new logo on the show and just keep it pushing. And I thought about it, and as the showrunner, I decided that it didn't interest me to do an hour-long interview show anymore. I wanted to do something a little bit more different. I wanted to incorporate hot topics and fun little segments here and there. And I wanted to make the show an extension of my personality. And the Spotlight was very much about the guest and not at all about me. And without sounding too self-centered, I kind of wanted my show to be about me. So, at least a little bit. You can't fault me for that. So, I decided to switch things up and develop Dev Talks. You see, the Spotlight was started more so out of experimentation because, I wanted to see if I could challenge myself and develop and teach myself the tools I needed to put together a half-decent sounding show on my own. And throughout that process, I grew to really enjoy it, and so I stuck with it. But the show itself, the Spotlight, was never truly the show that I wanted it to be. And that's not shade towards anyone that helped me with the Spotlight or was a guest on the Spotlight, because, whether the individual experiences were good or bad, the overall experience taught me a lot. And like I said, it helped me develop a foundation and a set of skills that enables me to do this show as independently as I do. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening. The fact that you took the time out of your day to find the episode and press play, it means the world to me. Thank you so much. New episodes of the show will be airing on Thursdays, and if you follow us on Facebook at Dev Talks Podcast, we're going to update everyone on the exact upload time, so you will know exactly when new episodes are going to be uploaded. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ThatDamnDevin, and make sure that you're subscribed to us on YouTube under the TDR Network channel. That way you can find us, you can find other TDR Network shows, including Between the Pylons and Kick Out Culture and things like that. So now that we've gotten the explanation for the spotlight out of the way, let's look towards this episode. We've got a really great show ahead for you guys. We're going to get into a round of hot topics where I'm going to give my thoughts on the new Connor spinoff without Roseanne. We'll talk about the continued push of the WWE Crown Jewel event in Saudi Arabia and why I think the WWE should cancel or move the event. We'll also be speaking with Brennan Lollar, a blogger who found a really interesting way to combat mental illness and regain control of his life. His story is one you're not going to want to miss. We'll dive into all of that, including some music from Diamond Dye, right after a few words from our friends, so stay tuned.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Johnny Jones from Mad Control, a brand new variety show that we based right here in the Tampa Bay area. We're going all over the place, bringing you the best local bands, local businesses, local artists, local everything. And if you want to be part of the fun, all you got to do is like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, or subscribe to us on YouTube. And stick around because you never know where we're going to end up next.
We're back, and I'm being joined by Trevor Abitz. We're about to get into some hot topics. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, great. So, last week, the Connors spinoff debuted, and we both watched it together. Well, we watched most of it together. You got a head start. What were your thoughts on the show? They killed off Roseanne. We kind of figured that was going to happen. She herself, Roseanne, said that she figured that they were going to kill her off. It ended up being via, and this is, spoiler alert, you guys, just so you know. They killed her off after she OD'd on pain pills that she developed an addiction to after knee surgery. How did you feel about that? How did you feel about the way they handled that?
I think they handled it pretty well. I mean, it's kind of cool how they kind of set it up.
Yeah, and what was really weird to me was, because I think they handled it as well as they could. I mean, how else are you going to explain why the title character isn't there anymore? I
mean, they could have done it through many different other ways besides just the opium crisis.
Yeah, but they could have. But they set it up so easily. Like,
right,
it's like,
right.
So why not? I mean, they're not trying to give her a big story arc on her way out.
No. But I thought like they could basically. I mean, you can go. Well, how they handled it, I think they did well, because then they can talk on the topic about drugs and everything. But they could have also done, a heart attack and everything, like, because she, they didn't really eat very well and everything. And
but didn't Dan have a heart attack?
And I think one or two of the episodes he did.
That's a rehash. We don't
but it's just the fact that. But if you think about it,
done that.
Right? But if you think about it in real life, you have people who have heart attacks. I mean,
in real life, you have people, trading drugs, trading pills,
exactly.
To avoid having to go to the doctor and, spend tons and tons and tons of money on. They covered a lot in the show, and I really liked the way that they handled Dan finding out that she continued to acquire pills on the low.
Right, and I also like it how the fact that if you think about it, that was kind of Roseanne's way. She kind of did her own thing and kind of wouldn't listen to everyone. She was a stubborn person. How she died was kind of a way that seemed natural for her character, I thought.
Yeah. She commented, Roseanne Barr commented on the way they killed her off, and she said that she thought it was really morbid. And it's like, well, you guys were already kind of headed down that path to begin with. You set this up, really. Like, so I don't see how she could be all that surprised by it.
I agree. Like, I don't know why she thought it was morbid. I mean, they pretty much kind of did it in a true-based thing or whatever. Like, it could happen in real life, true events and everything,
But yeah, I enjoyed the show. I will continue watching the show. A lot of people were like, oh, well, you killed off Roseanne, so I'm never watching again. I mean, that's fine. I enjoyed it. I think it gave all of the other members of the cast an opportunity to step up and kind of shine where they probably wouldn't have gotten that opportunity
I
before.
mean, I agree. You killed off one of the main characters, or like I've seen shows where they take one of the main characters off because like they've done some bad things, and the show doesn't feel right or whatever. And with the Connors, that's kind of true. It doesn't feel exactly whole or whatever because yeah, you are missing this person, but okay. To be real or whatever is I had just lost my mom in the beginning of this year, and when I was watching this episode it kind of brought back memories and everything of oh my goodness, there's this empty hole. Yes, Roseanne is gone, and it's never going to be the same again, and all you can do is move forward and just remember everything about Roseanne. And I hope that's what the Connors do is they just kind of reminisce and say, different memories, throughout the show, not every episode, just like, oh, Roseanne would have done that or whatever, just,
Yeah, but I can understand that, and it would make sense because people don't just suddenly stop referencing people once they've passed.
Right.
But for me, I'd be okay if they didn't mention her.
No, I get that, and they probably won't just because they're trying to move forward and
as long as they keep mentioning her, it gives her a reason to keep commenting on the show.
Right.
Like she said that she was going to go to Israel and not watch the show at all, but the debut episode she was commenting on it,
right.
And and she watched it, and
I mean, it was just kind of like, 2.5 Men when Charlie Sheen, got axed or whatever, and they brought in Ashton Kutcher. It was a little bit different. It was a little bit, weird.
It was very different.
Yeah. I could go back all the way with, I think it was was it I Dream of Jeannie Bewitched? I think it was I Dream of Jeannie. Yeah, it was I Dream of Jeannie, and they had to recast the main character because the original one kept hurting his back or whatever. And at first it was weird, it was different just because, oh, this is this whole new character.
Will you be watching the show?
Yes, I will be watching just because I feel like now all these characters now are able to shine or whatever, like you said.
So next we're going to talk about the WWE Crown Jewel event happening in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We discussed this before the show, but they're coming under a lot of pressure to cancel or move the event due to the news that a journalist was allegedly murdered by the Saudi government. It was ordered by the Saudi government, allegedly. The WWE is saying that they're keeping an eye on the situation. There's rumors that at the time of this recording, they're discussing whether or not they're going to cancel or move the show. They're running really low on time, and the public really wants them to make a decision one way or another. A lot of the roster is reportedly uncomfortable. They don't necessarily like the idea of going. There's talk that John Cena and Daniel Bryan both are refusing to work the event. They don't want to work the event. I can understand why John Cena would have more of an issue, seeing as how he's kind of on the cusp of being a mainstream star, and the last thing he needs is to be associated with this kind of scandal. But I think that it sets a really bad example if the WWE were to continue with this event. The accusations against the Saudi government right now are major, and the crime they're being accused of is inexcusable to me. They say that he died in a spat with agents that were there to interrogate him, and somehow it resulted in him being killed and dismembered. Don't know how that happens. Don't know how a situation escalates like that.
I don't remember the last time, I got in an argument with someone and I accidentally dismembered them, in a spat, but
there's no way that it could have escalated like they're saying it did. It's like
Right.
It's
and
ridiculous.
what I have to say is I feel sorry for the entertainers and all this, because WWE sometimes is very ruthless when it comes to the...
I think petty is the word. you're
Okay,
looking for.
that's... I didn't want to... But yeah, petty, and it's just like, oh, you don't do that, well, then you're fired, or we're letting you go, or, well...
I don't think that... It's not... They're less likely to fire people because they... Like, it takes something really, really, really major for them to fire you, like an
Yes
Enzo
and no,
Amore
but
type situation. Then
Well,
again,
right.
they did let Emma go, but and that just shows how petty they are.
Yeah,
they can
and
be, because they let Emma go because she complained publicly about the creative team and
I
their
could
writing.
see, like, John Cena has a lot of pull, and pretty much John Cena can pretty much do whatever he kind of wants within range. Right.
If the rumors that they're saying that they don't want to go are true, they're really doing the rest of the roster a service because they have more pull than everyone else.
Yes,
so
but you can
makes
also...
but here's the thing: if say a Rusev or I don't know, Kurt Hawkins said he didn't want to work the event, they'd be like, okay, and they would keep pushing regardless. If someone like John Cena or Daniel Bryan, on the other hand, were to say, oh, I don't want to work this event, then you're way more likely to have them go, oh, wait, we're losing some of our biggest stars. Okay, maybe there actually is a problem. Oh, crap, maybe we do need to reconsider the way that they're handling this. I think that it would do them a lot of good to relocate this show. With the rumors that Hulk Hogan, the alleged racist, is making a return to the company or making an appearance at Crown Jewel.
That just looks bad.
On top of them overlooking this whole, Jamal Khashoggi thing. I think I said his name right. I hope I did. It's a bad look all around. All around. I mean, they have the country. When they did the Greatest Royal Rumble, they showed a bunch of videos saying how progressive and wonderful and beautiful the city is, and a city of Jeddah. I think that's where they were, and it read a lot like propaganda videos, and so. If they go back to Saudi Arabia, play more videos like that, more propaganda-looking videos, have Hulk Hogan make a return after a lot of people have gone on the record and said that they don't think he should be making any more appearances for the company after his last scandal, that on top of everything else, it's just a terrible look for the company. And you would think that a publicly traded company that has all of these investors stateside would think twice about how this is making them look.
I mean, I feel sorry for the WWE because they just got into this contract or whatever, and
I don't feel bad for them. They knew who they were getting involved with. They chose money over morals. Really,
right, but then they do this whole contract before this kind of happened, and then this happened.
Yes,
but
but
whatever.
no, but here's the thing. The country has always had their stance on certain things.
Right.
Women can't perform there. Homosexuality is outlawed there. You know what I mean? It's like they have their stance on things that a lot of people here and a lot of people working on the WWE roster don't agree with and don't approve of.
I agree.
And I think that if you're going to get into business with
your
a country
ideals
like
and your
that,
morals should align with the ideas
exactly.
and morals
You can't
of your partner or whatever.
You can't say, oh, well, the only way we're going to cancel or move this event is if the United States government or the president himself intervenes. Like, that's saying, like, you only have one thing on your mind, and that's making this money. And they've made billions of dollars over the last year. So it's like, why? Why do you really need this Saudi money so much that you're willing to gamble your company, especially now with the news, another hot topic, with the news that the face of the WWE, Roman Reigns, is taking time away from the company to fight leukemia. Yes. And which is really sad, and we send our thoughts and prayers to him and his family. But this is not the time to be gambling on your public image. It's just not. And so...
But I don't know don't know how to say this or if I should say this, but do a lot of the fans really care?
Yes. Yes. There's a hashtag that was trending across Twitter that said, cancel Crown Jewel.
Okay, well, I guess the fans need to rally around and be like, look, if you do this, then fine, but we're out for a while.
Well, there's a collective of fans who listen and say, okay, I don't approve of this. I don't want to watch it. I'm not going to. Now, some of you may know that I also co-host the Kick Out Culture pay-per-view review show. And so normally what we do is we will watch these network specials and pay-per-view events, and we give like a live post show, and we review and we talk about it. We won't be doing that for Crown Jewel. I made that decision about a week ago. Watching it almost is just as bad as reviewing it. However, as our job is to watch this stuff and know what's going on, this event will change things. So I feel like a part of me feels like I should at least watch to keep up with what's going on. And also so I can know if they're showing videos, those propaganda like videos again and stuff like that, because that will also determine how invested I allow myself to be in this company, you know,
like into the future and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I'm one of those people who, for the most part, I legitimately put my money where my mouth is. You know this about me.
That's true, because there's been times where you're like, you're one of those people's like, oh, I'm not watching this show because blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or I'm not doing this because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I won't eat a certain pasta brand because they're, homophobic. I still haven't eaten Chick-fil-A in years. It's been years since I've tasted Chick-fil-A. Not from a lack of, wanting to, because Chick-fil-A is delicious. But at the end of the day, I realize that I have to put my money where my mouth is. Otherwise, when I'm talking, I'm just talking. You know what I mean? So, we're actually out of time. So we're going to wrap up Hot Topics. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a quick music break, and then we're going to be back with our featured interview for the week. This is Diamond Eyes with Flutter on Dev Talks.
That I own and know I'm letting go. I'm breaking these walls down, breaking these walls down. If you want adventure, then fly to home. But if you wanna travel, then go alone. Yeah, what's the point in us if I never know? Yeah, if you're gonna leave, I'ma let you go. I'm tired of the pain. doesn't mean I lost my style. Darling, where were you when my heart was on the ground? I thought time would prove that you would stick around. I guess time stood still, a king without his crown. Now I'm breaking and you're faking, girl. You never made a sound. I'm tired of the pain. Go away. I'm driving just in time.
That was Diamond Eyes with Flutter. You're listening to Dev Talks, and our featured guest this week is blogger Brennan Lollar. This quirky man took his dog and bipolar diagnosis on the road, and somewhere between Tampa and Las Vegas, found balance in his life via his travels and adventures. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brennan Lollar.
Hey, Dev. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. You and I met years and years and years ago. Like what feels like forever ago. But we interacted very minimally with each other. Like I knew next to nothing about you. Aside from the fact that, we had some mutual friends. But then recently, within the last couple of months, I had noticed your social media, and some of your posts were just really, really funny and interesting, and it kind of made me see you in a completely different light. You were a completely different person back when we first met.
I was. I could be a bit of an asshole back then. I was a completely different person. The tendency can still pop up here and there. But it's funny you mentioned that you didn't know anything about me back then, because back at that time, I was just swallowed by drug addiction and alcoholism. And I had built these walls, thick walls, to block people away. And I didn't let anybody know who I was. I didn't know who I was back then. I had no idea. And I was just kind of blindly going through life. But back then, I would just create this wall. I didn't want anybody to know how miserable I was while I was trying to fit myself into the box that society said we should be and what my parents said I should be. And I couldn't be those things. And so I drank and I did lots of drugs. And I closed off to everybody, and I just faked this persona that I thought that I should be.
And what persona was that?
The values that I grew up with were you work hard and you get a corporate job and you're supposed to have a family and you're supposed to, you shouldn't be silly out in public. And you're always, we were raised where you always had to be great. We got in a lot of trouble when we were kids if we weren't, hey, Dad, and yeah, we're great. And so no matter how bad I felt on the inside, I just mastered this mask that anyone that was around me, I was just great. I was always great. And but nobody ever really knew me or what was going on within me. And I didn't know myself either. I didn't even allow myself to figure out the things that I loved because I was always trying to fit myself into someone else's box.
You mentioned your parents expecting you to always be great. What was your relationship like with your parents?
You know, it's a complicated thing, and talking to other people, I really try and talk about my experiences and some of the abuse that I had growing up. Yeah, my mother protected as much as she could, but my father would give us attitude adjustments, and sometimes with whatever was laying around, or a backhand if we weren't great. So, you know, I had a good childhood. I did. And I didn't talk to my father for years because I was so angry at him. But I had a really rare opportunity once I went through some therapy and I started working on myself and I started really finding some self-love and learning to express myself. I was able to go to him and talk with him about some of the experiences. And as it turns out, I had exaggerated some of it in my head as a kid. Some of it was real. But we were able to talk through some of the things that happened as I was growing up, and we have a really good relationship now. And not everybody gets that opportunity. I'm pretty grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when we met, I was maybe 18, 19 years old at the time, and I don't think we ever saw each other outside of a club setting. Like,
sounds about right.
When did you first start partying and drinking and stuff like that? What got you into that?
I was 19, and I was very anti-drugs growing up. I'd smoked marijuana a few times. I didn't like it. But I would not touch drugs. But I'd moved to Orlando. I had my own business. I was doing pretty well. And I started going to the club scene, and they loved me. And I became friends with some of the bar owners and the people that were in the in clique. And they were doing cocaine and ecstasy and pills. I mean, everything you could think of, they were doing them. And it was going on so much around me. And I didn't know how else to meet people back then. I thought, well, I'll go to the clubs and I'll meet people. I kind of became desensitized to it. And my father's side of the family is rampant with addiction. My mother's side of the family, mental illness all the way up the chain. So I really kind of just got like a mix of crap when it comes to tendencies. And it just, one time I tried ecstasy. It was Christmas Eve. I was 19. And we, did that all night, and then I had to go to work, and someone said, well, here, take a bump of cocaine. You can work all day. And I tried the cocaine, and man, that was it. I was like a rocket off to the sun, and I had the money to have an endless supply. And I failed miserably in the end. The drugs and alcohol, I just got to a point where I was up for 12, 13, 14 days at a time, full hallucinations. My drug dealer actually called my mom, and he said, your son, he's a great customer, but you need to come get him.
Yikes.
Because he's talking to a room full of people that don't exist, and he's freaking us out.
Yikes.
And it was that bad.
It takes some crazy stuff happening for a dealer to get on the phone and call up someone's, mom. For sure. Yeah,
well, I was talking to a room full of people that didn't exist, and I was paranoid, and I was like, you have to get me, and what are you doing, and why are you? And this dude is just looking at me like, you need to go.
So, at that point, were you already diagnosed?
No. I didn't just get diagnosed. I'm 38 now, and it was just 3 years ago that I got diagnosed.
Wow.
I didn't share this with you earlier, but I found a journal from 2012. I was 60 days sober because I've been clean with the exception of three setbacks, but I've been clean for 7 years. But 60 days after getting sober, I wrote in my journal and I said, I've cleared all of the drugs and alcohol out of me. I've cleared away the people, the pawns in my game that I was using to distract myself from myself. But there's still this demon in me. There's something wrong with me. There's something inside of me that still is wrecking my life. And it was so interesting that back then I knew something is wrong with me. Yeah. I'm not like other people. And I was searching for it back then with no idea that I was bipolar, because I didn't know about mental illness. And it kept wrecking my life for 5 years, over and over. It just destroyed everything I built and all the successes, and destroyed relationships until I finally went and got help.
So when you say that, because you mentioned earlier that mental illness runs in your family on your mom's side. Now, did you know that growing up? Was there anyone in your life growing up that, you knew, oh, yeah, that's my, for instance, my aunt, she's bipolar, or, were you aware of that back then, or was it one of those things that, no one really talked about?
It's a family of secrets and hush and don't let so-and-so know and let's keep this between us. I just didn't know. I don't know if my mother knew or not. I haven't asked. I did know that my Aunt Paula, she had to be hospitalized. She thought she had thumbtacks in her gums, and she would try and dig them out. And we all knew about Aunt Paula. But other than that, it wasn't really talked about. So
what was the tipping point? Did it all happen at once? Did you get sober before you got diagnosed, or was there something that happened along the way that was kind of a tipping point where everything kind of snowballed in?
So I say often, some lessons come easy for me, and sometimes I have to be beaten into submission.
Some people are like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people. So there were a couple of different tipping points before I finally decided to put my entire effort into the choice to be happy. Because I kept half-assing it. I kept hoping this would fix it or that would fix it, but I really didn't want to put the work into it. What got me in to get help is I had lost another job because I started having these panic attacks. And back then I compartmentalized everything. If I would hurt people, I would get somebody to tell me that they loved me just so I could stop talking to them. And I would do these things because I felt like it was building this wall of numbness, so I didn't have to figure out what was going on with me. And so I was doing these horrible things, but I did it to stay numb. And I stayed in a place where I hated myself for it, but I was numb, and I didn't feel anything. And I would just box these things up, and mentally in my head I would put them on a shelf in a dark storage area in the back of my mind, and I built a wall of these boxes, and I didn't feel anything. But at some point, all the boxes blew off those lids at once, and I started having anxiety attacks and panic attacks. I would break down crying in the middle of a good day. It was so bad I couldn't hold a job, and so I finally decided to go get help. And I didn't tell you this either earlier, but the first day I met with my psychiatrist when I went to get help, I told him, I said, I think I'm a psychopath. I don't feel anything. I don't have empathy for people. I don't care about people. I said, people are blocks in a wall, and if one's not serving a purpose, I push it through and I replace it with one just like it. And, after talking to me for the day, he kind of laughed and he said, well, let me tell you the definition of psychopath. He goes, I see that you have empathy and you're not a psychopath. But that's where my mind was. I felt poisoned. I felt like I was poisoned. And so he had me go take assessments, and then I was diagnosed bipolar. But then what happened is I was so excited to find out I was bipolar, because I was like, man, all of this bad stuff that I've done. I finally had an excuse to go do whatever I wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
It was not good.
Wow.
Yes. I was like, great, I'm bipolar. That's why I did all these things. I don't have to feel bad about it. And now I could just be an asshole, totally wide open.
And just
whenever I do
say,
something shitty,
I'm bipolar.
Sorry, I'm bipolar. Can't help it.
Oh, wow.
And,
wow.
So I just, it was bad. It was a bad year or two because I was just wide open. And and I'm bipolar. Sorry, I just ran you off the road. I'm in a rage right now. And I just reveled in it. I was so glad.
When you would have these like manic, moments, what kind of stuff were you doing?
When I would go manic, I would be awake for 3 to 5 straight days with no sleep. And my family was accusing me of relapsing. So I learned to hide whenever I would be manic. I would hide whatever was going on with me because I was being told, I was being accused of relapsing. I was being accused of this. I was too many energy drinks. And I would try and tell my family there's something wrong with me. And they would say, no, everybody has ups and downs. You're normal. No, you're just fine. You're normal. And so I'm watching other people. I'm observing human behaviors, and I know there's something wrong with me. But everyone's telling me, yeah, you're just fine. And so I hid it. And when I would get manic, I would miss work. That's when I would do my sex addiction kicked up, and I would have 5 or 10 partners, and I would be rotating them left and right, and just the sex addiction that was completely out of control. I would spend every penny I had to start art projects all over the place and tear walls down in my house. And once I painted every wall in chalkboard paint and scribbled all over every wall, everything that was in my head, blueprints and things I wanted to build in math and quotes. And so I would miss work, or I would show up to work and I would look like I had been up for days. When I had depressions, I couldn't get out of bed for a week or two. I just laid in bed and watched Netflix videos, and I got out just to eat, and that was it. And I would disappear for a few weeks, and so I would lose, a job for attendance. When I was using the drugs, I would go manic, and then combined with the drugs, I would do some things that were illegal. Some I can talk about, some I can't. I felt like I could get away with anything, and when I did, it even backed it up. After a few years of me just getting absolute joy out of doing whatever I wanted and blame it on bipolar, I finally hit a point where even that behavior, because it just kept eating at me that I was behaving in bad ways. But I got to a point where I sat on a golf cart behind this place I was working, and I thought, I'm either going to kill myself or I need to go and get my help. I need to go get help and really find out what's going on. And I did. I finally went to a psychiatrist. They got me on the meds. I got a bad mix of meds. It sent me to a really bad episode. I slipped my wrists, and I ended up in the hospital for 5 days.
Was that a reason why you are, I don't want to say opposed to meds now, but is that why you don't currently take them?
The meds, they taught us, and I went to a few treatments. And so that's I'm finally putting all these pieces together in my push for happiness. I've learned so much that I have the tools now. But to answer your question, the meds are a small part of managing mental illness. They taught us that. It's about 20-30%, they said. The meds get you to a point where you are able to manage it.
Yeah.
But the meds were washing my personality out. I wasn't creative. One of them, I was on 5 meds. One of them, I couldn't drive till noon because I would fall asleep at the wheel. I just lost interest in things I knew I loved. My creativity was squashed. I was just miserable. I was absolutely miserable on the meds. It took 1.5 years to get a mix that worked for me. My body chemistry is off. One of them, and it takes months to get up to therapeutic level, and it made my small twitch muscles just twitch all over, and it felt like roaches were crawling under my skin. And then I was stuck with it for 2 months while I tapered off. Another one made me so stiff I couldn't move. Another one had me so much physical pain, I just wanted to cry. Another one made me want to sleep all day. And it was that 1.5 years, that's when I lost my will to live. That's when the suicide attempts happened. And when my mother had me promise I wouldn't try that again, I put myself in situations hoping I would die. When I got my tumor in my head, I went and got the brain scans, but I was so relieved because I said, finally, I can die in peace. And so I went for the scans to see how much longer I had to live with no intention of doing the surgery to remove it. And my friend Kat was the only one who knew, and she said, "You need to get that surgery." I said, "Kat, it's in God's hands. If I live or die, I'm not getting that surgery." And do you know that damn thing quit growing 1 millimeter before it had to be removed, before they had to cut my face off and bust my bone plate? It stopped growing on its own.
Yeah.
And it blew their minds.
You did say it was in God's hands, so
yeah, that was one of my eye openers, that maybe there's a purpose for me. Maybe I have a reason to be here.
You told me earlier that there was a period in your life where you were homeless. How did that come about?
Oh, the twists keep coming. So I get the med mix right. The brain tumor stops growing. Not brain tumor, but the head tumor. But then several things happened at once. My boss became ill. I was running both companies, working 80 hours a week. I hated my life. I was stuck working all kinds of hours. A 5-year relationship with someone I loved dearly. I was about to ask him to marry me. I was about to have a ring custom made that I had designed. He found out and he said, "I can't marry you." And I understood why, because I had done horrible things to him the first few years of our relationship. So I got it. We're still best friends today, but I understood it. The house was too much for me to continue repairing because the meds were still holding me back. And then a few other things happened all at once. And I said, "I've got to go. I'm going to kill myself if I don't go. I have to go. I have to just ditch all of this because I'm so unhappy. I haven't wanted to live for years." But something happened, and I said, "It's time to go. It's time to go." So I packed up a car full of stuff. I said, "I don't care about anything else. I don't care about this house. I'm just going to let it go." And something said, "Go hit the road," and I hit the road. And so I let the house go. It was in the family, so it's back to the family. It's not, I didn't let the bank come and take it, but the family took it back over, and it's no longer an option to me. I came to regret that, but I'm very glad of how my life turned out. But yeah, so I was homeless for 1.5 years. I crisscrossed the country 4 times, picking up odd jobs, visiting friends and family, living in a tent. And it turned out I had challenges and I failed at some of them, but overall I met challenges successfully, and I started learning about myself, loving myself, becoming healthy, practicing the things that I had learned in treatment, and it completely gave way to my path for hope and happiness. And it became what it is today.
What would you say was the hardest part of that journey? Because it sounds like you've been through a lot.
Not falling back to old behavior. There were a few times where I had no money. My car broke down once. I basically fixed my car with rocks from the woods. I can tell you that story another time down the road. But I was scrounging for nickels and dimes, pulling the carpet up, looking for nickels and dimes under the floorboard. I always fed my dog first, and I was scrounging to buy a can of soup. And I thought about going back to some old ways, and I knew ways that I could get some money. And there are a whole lot of ways I got money when I needed to before I made the decision to lead a happy life. But instead, I held on to my faith. I said, I feel like I'm being led on this path, and I'm learning the things I need to learn to love myself. So I'm going to have faith that I'll be taken care of. And every time something happened that was just mystical, that ended up leading me to the next place, and I was taken care of. I was provided for every time.
Do you consider yourself religious or spiritual, or are you more spiritual?
I love this question, and I surround myself with a lot of people that are spiritual and some that are very religious. I believe something spun all of this into motion. Something created these laws of nature. Something created energy that cannot be created nor destroyed. Something put it into existence. So yes, I believe in God, higher power, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it. I'm not religious. I grew up, my father hated religion, and so I grew up hating religion. But as I've grown and I've connected with people, I've learned, I believe that through all religions, they're celebrating that one higher power. So to me, all roads lead to Rome, so to speak. So because I believe that, I can have a religious conversation with somebody and I can spiritually connect through it.
Yeah.
And still have a good experience, even though I may not necessarily believe exactly what they believe.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see that. Let's talk about your website and your blog.
Oh, great.
Because I love getting to see your little adventures, because like you're one of those people who will see a weird rock formation on the side of the road, and where most people will drive by it and admire it, maybe take a picture on their way by. No, you'll stop, pull over on the side of the road, and will climb a fence to go climb those rocks. And it's like,
oh yeah,
like things that most people wouldn't think to do, you do, and it seems to make you feel fulfilled.
Yeah, it's the big kid in me, and I don't think I'm ever really fully gonna grow up. But I just I've been, and I didn't used to do that. I before I'd be like, ooh, you can't go climb the rocks. This is not what people do. But now I'm like, forget that. These rocks were put there for us to climb and to go get a good view and to have a challenge. I'm like, let's go battle it. Let's go challenge it. Forget what people do. To me, it's just, it's all about, it ties to exploring self. I'll see a little challenge or a big challenge. And one time I tried to climb this giant sand dune in the middle of Utah, and I fell down the whole thing and then laughed like an idiot the whole way and then tried running back up it again. But I don't know. I just believe like, we can't let fear hold us back. If we see something that looks fun, we should go do it. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody else and it's not illegal, go explore the world, explore yourself, find out what you are or aren't capable of, and just push to do better, push to have more fun, push to find joy and happiness, and just giggle like a kid and sometimes act like an idiot and just let loose.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to do that nowadays, especially when you're a part of the rat race, I know some people who are living the lives that you were living. They are spending the vast majority of their time at work, and when it's all said and done, they're just spent and drained physically and emotionally and mentally, and there's no end to it. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop. And so you're just going and going and going and hoping for it for the ride to stop, and it doesn't. I mean, sure, you might get like a vacation, but a lot of people don't. You can ease off the gas, but you can never really take your foot off it completely. You know what I mean?
You're so right. You're so right. A lot of people, they feel that way or they're stuck, and I did too. Part of it is society says a mark of success is you've got a good job and a good check and you've got a new car and the latest iPhone and the latest this, and I conformed to that. I was stuck in that rut. I was so unhappy and I didn't even know it. I just felt dampened and disconnected.
You can argue that that's the trap of capitalism, though, because a lot of those things that society says we need, like I know a lot of people who have put themselves in debt to make sure that they have the latest iPhone things, and so then that means that they have to work twice as hard and work overtime to pay off that new iPhone. And at the end of the day, it's just a phone.
It's just a phone.
You can make all the arguments you want. Oh, it has like the best camera. It's like, okay, but how much better than last year's edition? And by last year, I mean 6 months ago. And I'll say to somebody, are you gonna blow that picture up to wall mural size? No. I'm like, well, that's really the only difference in 12 megapixel and 18. I mean, 4 megapixel to 8, that little thumbnail Facebook selfie, it's gonna look the same. Yeah, exactly. So it's like people just we live in a culture of keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but something that's always bothered me is when somebody meets you and the very first question they ask is, well, what do you do? As a form of judging. No matter how you sugarcoat it, that's a way to size somebody up and judge. I never ask that. And when I'm asked that, I say, you know what, most people hate their jobs. What I want to know is, what do you love to do? But people can't answer that. So many people are so stuck conforming to, fighting with the, or keeping up with the Joneses or their job and this. And that's why I started my Instagram when I started traveling and I started finding happiness is I said, I've got to show people that it only takes a moment or two in your day to find some joy and to be silly and have some fun, and it can change your life. And that's what really started my whole social media platform, which is now about mental health awareness. But, and I had a guy email me once, and he goes, man, let me tell you, I've been stuck in a cubicle and I hate my life. He goes, and I've been watching your adventures, and I saw you camping and having so much fun. And I went camping for my first time. I went and bought all the gear. I went camping, and I loved it. And he goes, every weekend I go camping, and it's the joy of my life. He goes, the nature. And I got a lot of emails like that from people who are pulling out of their shell because they saw me out there just being a silly idiot for a few moments at a time in the world. And that was really rewarding.
Tell us a little bit more about the website. Where can we find it? What's your social media? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, the website is Finding Beezy, one word. And the little funny story, I got the nickname Beezy because I was working with this one girl, and she goes, "Bee, you be so easy. Damn, you just Beezy. Oh, Beezy, that's your nickname. You Beezy." So it's Beazzzy. That's how she spelled it, so I kept it. But and I chose Finding.Beezy for my Instagram a long time ago. When I started this journey, it was my mom's idea. She goes, well, Brennan, you're out finding yourself, and your nickname's Beezy. And I said, oh, Finding Beezy. That's a cool name. FindingBeezy.com. FindingBeazzy. FindingBeezy.com. And from there, I've got a link to my Instagram is right there. And then you can get on to, Brennan Lollar is my Facebook. I share a little more personal stuff on my Facebook. The website is more some of my insights in mental health awareness. And so I keep it geared more towards that. And Instagram, I put all my silly stuff.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
We will definitely be having you back.
What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Ooh, can we switch up all the rules and imagine a utopia? Darling, I'm just so fed up with these expectations. They keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. I'm I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to think, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a, yeah.
That was Unknown Brain featuring Heather Sommer with Perfect 10. And ladies and gentlemen, sadly, we've reached the end of the show. Thank you guys for listening. I really mean it. I promise you the show will only get better with time. But thank you for tuning in to the very first episode. It means a lot to me. Thanks to Trevor Abitz for filling in last minute on the Hot Topics segment. And thanks to Brennan Lollar for joining us as well. Don't forget, you can follow the show on Facebook at Dev Talks Podcast, and you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ThatDamnDevin. We're also available on Spotify, YouTube, and the Spreaker Podcast Radio app, so be sure to join us next week for more great talk.
Thanks for listening to Dev Talks. Get the latest Dev Talks news and info by subscribing to the show's Facebook page at Dev Talks Podcast and by following the show on Spreaker Podcast Radio, YouTube, and Spotify for new episodes every week. This has been Dev Talks, a production of TDR.